Welcome to RPG PhD, where we dive deep into the theory and practice of tabletop role-playing games. I'm Dr. Ben, and today we're exploring a powerful way to understand and design role-playing games, the DDE model: Dynamism, Decisions, Discovery, and Expression. Whether you're a game master looking to make your sessions more engaging, a designer crafting your own system, or just a curious player wanting to dig into what makes games truly come alive, this framework offers a fresh perspective. Let's unpack how DDE can help create richer, more dynamic storytelling at your table. A group of tabletop role players huddles around a map strewn with miniatures, character sheets, and polyhedral dice. In moments, the dungeon master might spring an unexpected trap or a wandering monster on them, changing the course of events entirely. A dose of dynamism. The players will debate tactics and choose whether to fight, flee, or parley, making critical decisions that shape their fate. With each choice, they inch closer to uncovering a hidden secret of the dungeon or the story's lore, the thrill of discovery. All the while, each player portrays their character in a unique way through witty dialogue or creative problem solving, an act of personal expression. These four elements, dynamism, decisions, discovery, and expression, form a framework for understanding what makes a tabletop role-playing game engaging and how to design systems that maximize player enjoyment. Tabletop RPGs like Dungeons & Dragons, Blades in the Dark, and Apocalypse World offer rich, interactive storytelling experiences. But what exactly makes these games work and keep players interested? The DDE model breaks the experience into four key components: the dynamic changes that keep the game unpredictable, the decisions that give players agency, the discoveries that reward exploration, and the expression that let players be creative. We'll see how DDE relates to the well-known MDA, Mechanics Dynamics Aesthetic Framework, which you can check out. I'll have it linked below. And discuss how game masters, designers, and players can use DDE to design better games and enhance the player experience. Let's begin our deep dive into each element of the DDE model, starting with dynamism. Dynamism refers to the lively, changing nature of the game world and its narratives. A dynamic game system produces surprises and unforeseen events. It ensures the adventure never feels completely static or scripted. In a dramatically rich RPG, neither the players nor the game master can predict every twist. There's always an element of spontaneity or emergence. This might come from dice rolls introducing chance, mechanics that escalate tension, or a game master's improvisation. Dynamism is what makes a session feel alive and full of possibilities, as the story can pivot in response to player actions or random outcomes. In tabletop RPGs, dynamism keeps the story unpredictable and alive, with different systems emphasizing it in unique ways. In Dungeons & Dragons, dynamism often comes from dice rolls, random tables, and improvised dungeon master decisions, ensuring players react to surprising outcomes rather than following a set script. Powered by the Apocalypse games like Apocalypse World and Dungeon World, build dynamism directly into their mechanics, using partial successes and undefined world elements to create evolve and reactive stories. Blades in the Dark intensifies this by tying actions to escalating consequences through clocks and devil's bargains, making plans feel constantly precarious. Even narrative-like games like Fate foster dynamism through compels and fate points, encouraging players and GMs to collaboratively twist the story in unexpected ways, ensuring that play remains emergent and ever-changing. The importance of dynamism is that it keeps players on their toes. In a dynamic game, the world responds to the players. Actions have consequences that lead to new situations, and random events can intervene. If a game lacked dynamism, say a completely railroaded adventure where every event is pre-scripted and nothing unexpected ever occurs, players would likely feel like passive passengers. Tabletop role-playing games thrive on the feeling that anything could happen, whether through dice randomness, mechanics that introduce chaos, or simply the collaborative improvisation of game master and players. Dynamism ensures the game world is in constant motion. It provides the spark that can turn a routine encounter into a memorable story. Having a dynamic game world is exciting, but surprise and change alone aren't enough. The players also need meaningful ways to influence what's happening. Next, we'll look at decisions, the second pillar of DDE, which covers the choices players make and why they matter. If dynamism is the game throwing surprises at the players, decisions are how the players actively shape the game. One famous adage is that a good game is a series of interesting choices. In tabletop role playing games, player decisions are the engine that drives the story forward. They are the moments when players assert their agency and make a mark on the game world. A decision in this context isn't just any action, it's a choice made by the player where there are multiple options and the outcome matters in some way. Good games present players with dilemmas, trade offs, and strategic or narrative choices that have consequences. The accumulation of these choices creates a personalized experience. Decision making is central to the experience of many tabletop role playing games, though each system handles it in its own way. In Dungeons and Dragons, players make important choices from character creation through combat, exploration, and social encounters with meaningful consequences that shape the unfolding story. Powered by the Apocalypse games, like Apocalypse World, simplify mechanics but maintain rich narrative decision points, asking players to choose moves and accept hard costs that deepen emotional investment. Blades in the Dark pushes decision making into resource management and risk reward calculation during heists and downtime, forcing players to prioritize under pressure. Even narrative-focused games like Fiasco and Fate Core place critical decisions in players' hands, letting them shape the tone and twists of the story directly. Across these systems, the common thread is that meaningful player choices create engagement, agency, and drama. The key with the decisions element is that the game must offer choices that are both interesting and consequential. If every choice in a game leads to the same outcome, players will quickly sense that their decisions don't matter. This is sometimes called the illusion of choice, which good RPG design tries to avoid. Similarly, if one option is clearly always better than the others, a dominant strategy in game design terms, then it's not a real decision. Players will feel railroaded into the obvious choice. The best role playing game experiences often come from hard decisions. Do we rescue our friend or chase the villain? Do I use my last healing potion on myself or give it to the wounded cleric? These moments force players to consider their values, their goals, and the risks they're willing to take. In tabletop role playing games, unlike many video games, the range of decisions can be incredibly open ended. We could try literally anything to get past this locked gate. What do we do? That open endedness is powerful, but it relies on the game master and the system to honor player choices with logical consequences in the story. Decisions in the DDE model highlight the importance of player agency and choice. Every time players make a meaningful choice, they become co-authors of the story. Their decisions can lead to successes or failure, shape relationships, and alter the world. When players feel their choices have weight, they become more invested in the game. However, making choices wouldn't be nearly as fun if those choices didn't lead to discovering something new. Next, let's explore discovery, the third pillar of DDE, which is all about what players uncover as a result of their adventures. One of the quintessential pleasures of role playing games is discovery, the thrill of finding something new, solving a mystery, or exploring the unknown. In the context of DDE, discovery refers to the elements of the game that satisfy a player's curiosity and sense of wonder. This could mean exploring a physical space, like mapping a hidden temple or venturing into an uncharted star system in a sci-fi RPG, uncovering lore and secrets of the storyline, like learning the villain's true motive or the ancient history of the game world, or even mechanical discovery, figuring out how a certain puzzle or magic item works. Discovery is what engages the explorer spirit of players. It's the promise of uncharted territory and the excitement of what's behind that next door. The importance of discovery in games has been noted in game design theory. In fact, discovery, game as uncharted territory, is listed as one of the core aesthetics of play in the MDA framework, meaning many players are motivated by the urge to explore. Tabletop RPGs are especially well suited for this because they often feature vast imaginative worlds and narratives that are revealed progressively. Unlike a novel where the author decides exactly what the reader will learn and when, an RPG allows players to choose where to probe and what to investigate, giving them a hand in revealing the content. Discovery plays a central role in many tabletop role playing games, offering players the thrill of exploration, revelation, and piecing together narrative mysteries. Dungeons and Dragons emphasizes discovery through dungeon crawls, lore rich settings, and modules like Curse of Strahd, where uncovering hidden truths transforms the story. In investigative games like Call of Cthulhu or Gumshoe based systems, discovery is the core mechanic. Players gather clues to solve horrors, with successes based more on interpretation than chance. Powered by the Apocalypse games embed discovery into collaborative storytelling, encouraging players to reveal the world through moves like spout lore and shared world building prompts. Even in action oriented games like Blades in the Dark, discovery emerges through faction secrets, information gathering, and evolving storylines. Narrative focused systems like Fate and Hillfolk explore character based discoveries, revealing relationships and internal conflicts over time. Across all these systems, discovery engages curiosity and drives momentum, rewarding players not just for solving puzzles, but for actively engaging with the game's world and narrative possibilities. Discovery isn't limited to setting, lore, or immediate clues. It can also be character discovery. In long running campaigns, players often discover things about their own characters' backstories or destinies. Many role playing games encourage game masters to weave character histories into the narrative. Perhaps a player always thought their character was an orphan or of humble origin, but later discovers they have royal blood, a lost heir to the throne. This kind of personal revelation can be just as thrilling as finding a lost tomb because it recontextualizes the character's journey. Ultimately, discovery in an RPG is about rewarding curiosity. It motivates players to engage with the game world, to poke into dark corners, to ask questions, to experiment and see what happens. A well designed or well run game dangles the promise of interesting discoveries to entice players forward. Without discovery, a game can feel hollow or repetitive. With no new information or content, players might think, what's the point of going into the next room if it's just more of the same? On the other hand, a game rich in discovery constantly gives players something to chew on. New lore, new areas, new plot threads. This keeps the experience fresh and sustains long term interest. Now, as exciting as it is to find things in a game, another core pleasure of role playing games is being able to add your own personal touch to the story. This is where expression comes in, the fourth pillar of DDE, and one especially close to the heart of role playing. Expression in the DDE model represents the player's ability to express themselves through gameplay. In other words, how does a game allow you to be creative, to project your personality, style, or ideas into the game world? In many ways, expression is the heart of role playing. It's about making a character that reflects something you find cool or interesting, and then playing that character in a way that's uniquely yours. Expression can show up through character creation, the concepts and backstory you come up with, through the in game roleplay, the dialogue and decisions that reflect your character's personality, and through problem solving, finding creative approaches that express your ingenuity. This element is all about player creativity and identity. It's the game as a canvas for self discovery and artistic play. Game design literature also recognizes expression as a key motivator for players. In the MDA framework's taxonomy of fun, expression, game as self discovery, is listed as one of the core aesthetics. It describes the fun a player gets from being able to express themselves within the game, such as creating a character that represents them or doing things their own way. Tabletop role playing games, being open ended, are arguably one of the best genres for player expression, often much more so than video games, which have technical limitations. In an RPG, if you imagine something and communicate it, it becomes part of the game's reality, as long as the game master and the group are on board. That's a powerful avenue for creativity. Expression is a vital element of tabletop role-playing games, allowing players to creatively define, portray, and evolve their characters, and different systems encourage this in unique ways. Dungeons & Dragons supports expression through its structured but flexible character creation and mechanics, letting players flavor abilities, invent backstories, and roleplay in distinct ways that reflect personal style. Narrative-focused games like Fate Core push this further by centering mechanics around free-form aspects and custom stunts, turning personal character concepts into mechanical tools. Powered by the Apocalypse games emphasize expressive playbooks, each filled with narrative prompts and evolving moves that help players shape vivid, individualized personas. In Blades in the Dark, expression emerges through choices like vices, backgrounds, and crew identity, as well as the freedom to solve problems in diverse creative ways. Across these systems, expression is more than stats. It's about making the game your own, telling stories only your table could tell. The thread is that expression is about making the game yours. Players feel emotionally attached when they can put a bit of themselves or their imagination into the game world. This can also lead to very touching or profound moments. A player might give a rousing in-character speech that leaves the whole table cheering, or share a piece of their character's backstory in a monologue that silences the room. Those are expressions of creativity and often personal to the player. Many players put fragments of their own life experiences or philosophies into their characters. A good role-playing game creates space for these moments by not being so rigid that every action is predetermined or by the numbers. Instead, the rules should inspire creativity rather than constrain it completely. It's worth noting that different games balance the DDD elements differently. Some highly tactical games might emphasize decisions over expressions. You can think of a wargamey RPG where there's less room for character personality, but lots of strategic choice. While a pure storytelling game might emphasize expression and discovery over decisions, if there's minimal strategy and more collaborative narration. Ideally, though, a robust tabletop role-playing game gives a bit of all four. Dynamic situations, meaningful choices, new things to discover, and ways for players to express themselves. While the DDE model offers a useful lens for thinking about role-playing game experiences, it's not without criticisms. One major critique is that it risks oversimplifying the complexity of player motivations, reducing a wide range of emotional and cognitive engagement into just four categories. Some argue that elements like tension, fellowship, and challenge, which are often crucial to player satisfaction, aren't fully captured by DDE unless they're awkwardly squeezed into the broader categories. Others note that DDE lacks a clear causal structure, unlike MDA's defined flow from mechanics to dynamics to aesthetics, which can make DDE feel more descriptive than prescriptive for actual design work. Additionally, critics point out that DDE doesn't always account for group dynamics or the collaborative negotiation of narrative authority, which are particularly important in tabletop role-playing games. It focuses primarily on individual experience, potentially underemphasizing how emergent social play shapes outcomes. Despite these issues, many find DDE a helpful, if incomplete, heuristic, especially when used alongside more formal design frameworks. We've now defined dynamism, decisions, discovery, and expression, and seen how they manifest in various games and heard from the critics. Before we discuss how to use these in design and play, it's useful to compare DDE with another popular framework in game design, which I have already mentioned before, the MDA, the Mechanics Dynamics Aesthetic. Understanding the relationship between DDE and MDA will clarify how DDE fits into broader game design theory and how it differs in focus. If you haven't seen my video on the MDA framework, I break it down in complete detail. I have it linked below, so feel free to check it out. And again, this stands for Mechanics, Dynamics, and Aesthetics. MDA is a model that helps designers think about how games create experiences. So here's a quick summary. Mechanics are the rules and systems of the game, the math, the algorithms, the specific moves or actions that players can take. Dynamics are what happens when the mechanics are actually used in play, the emergent behavior of the game system, and players interacting. Aesthetics in the MDA model refers to the emotional responses or experiences of the players, essentially the types of fun or engagement the game yields. In the original MDA paper, the authors list categories of these aesthetic experiences, such as challenge, narrative, fellowship, discovery, expression, etc. Notably, discovery and expression are explicitly two of the 8 kinds of the fun in MDA's aesthetics, as we've referenced earlier, and one could argue that decisions correspond to the fun of challenge or agency, while dynamism corresponds to a mix of surprise, not listed as one of the 8, but akin to narrative and drama, or the unexpected elements that create drama. The DDE model is closely related to the aesthetics layer of MDA. It focuses on the experience aspects, what the player enjoys or engages with. In many ways, DDE can be seen as a more specific breakdown for what role-playing games of what MDA calls aesthetics or emotional outcomes. Discovery and expression are clearly in that category of aesthetic enjoyment. Players love finding things and expressing themselves creatively. Decisions might be seen as part of the aesthetic of challenge or agency. Players find fun in making choices and seeing the outcomes, which is tied to both challenge, making a choice to overcome an obstacle, and to the general desire for agency in a game. Dynamism is slightly unique. It's describing a property of the game that leads to certain aesthetics like surprise, drama, or immersion. A dynamic game keeps players emotionally on edge, which feeds into the aesthetic of narrative, drama, and perhaps sensation, which is excitement as well. One key difference is that MDA is a formal framework from designer to player perspective, while DDE in this context is more of an experimental framework focusing on what players and game masters might care about in role-playing game play. MDA has a directional notion. Designers think in terms of building mechanics, which create dynamics, which produce aesthetics for players. The player, conversely, experiences the game starting with aesthetics, feelings, which arise from dynamics, which are caused by mechanics. DDE, on the other hand, also use it here, but it isn't about a sequence or cause and effect chain, but rather 4 facets that together make up the experience. We aren't saying that one leads to another in a strict order. Instead, dynamism, decisions, discovery, and expression are intertwined aspects that all contribute to the overall enjoyment. For example, a particular game mechanic, like MDA's mechanics, like a critical hit system, could simultaneously increase dynamism, unexpected big effects, offer a decision, do we press our luck hoping for a crit or play safe, enable discovery, maybe discovering what special effect the crit does, and encourage expression. How do you describe that epic critical hit? The frameworks are complementary by looking at the game from different angles. The 2 frameworks differ in focus. MDA is about the relationship between the nuts and bolts and the resulting fun, whereas DDE is about categorizing the fun and content in a way that's actionable for game masters and designers. With this understanding, we can more confidently use DDE as a tool. So how can a game master or a game designer apply the DDE model in practice? Let's turn to that, using DDE for designing game systems and for analyzing or improving the player experience in ongoing games. When designing a tabletop RPG, or even just a campaign or adventure within an RPG, the DDE model can serve as a valuable checklist and compass. Each element of DDE points to a question the designer should consider. Dynamism is, how will my game stay dynamic and surprising over time? Decisions asks, what meaningful choices will players have and at what intervals? Discovery is, what will players get to explore or uncover in this game? And expression, how can players express their creativity or personal style through this system? By deliberately designing with these questions in mind, you can create a more robust and engaging game. Let's consider each briefly from a design standpoint. Designing for dynamism. Ensure your game has mechanics or content that introduce variability and surprise. This could mean using randomness wisely, dice rolls, card draws, random tables, so outcomes aren't always predetermined. It could also mean creating mechanics that feed back on themselves to produce complex outcomes. For example, a behavior where success in one area causes trouble in another, leading to a feedback loop, as seen in some survival games where finding treasure might also awaken a curse. In an RPG specifically, you might include encounter tables, critical hit fumble charts, or evolving world states. Perhaps the villain's plan advances on a clock each session, creating urgency and new events. Blades in the Dark's design is a good reference. It has implicit dynamism through its fortune rolls and clocks, ensuring the story can take unplanned turns. As a designer, also consider replayability. A dynamic game tends to be more replayable because it won't play out the same way twice. For instance, if you're designing a one-shot mystery, you might add multiple possible culprits and let the game master choose secretly, so even that module can surprise players again on a second playthrough. By having a different culprit, this creates a dynamic scenario structure. However, balance dynamism such that it doesn't devolve into chaos. Too much unpredictability can frustrate players if they feel nothing is consistent. It's a dial to tune, enough to keep things interesting, but not so much that the game feels random for randomness' sake. Designing for decisions. A well-designed game gives players agency. This means at every juncture, ask yourself, is there more than one viable path here? If the game ever feels like it's on rails, consider adding a branch or an option. For example, a dungeon adventure could always include multiple routes or methods to overcome an obstacle. If there's a locked door, players could pick the lock, bash it down, search for a key, or even decide to turn back and take a different path. Multiple solutions. In terms of mechanics, provide interesting trade-offs. A classic design principle is the idea of meaningful choices. Choices where each option has a potential upside and downside. In Dungeons & Dragons design, spells are a good example. Do I prepare offensive spells or defensive ones today? I can't have everything, so that decision matters. In a game like Fate, you encourage decisions by giving a finite pool of fate points. Do I spend my last point now for a bonus and risk not having it later, or save it? Designing character advancement also involves decisions. Maybe at level up, the player chooses one of two new powers, thus defining their character's direction. Avoid auto-choose situations where one option is clearly better. Instead, aim for different but roughly equal options that fit different playstyles. As a designer, you should also consider decisions at different levels. Moment-to-moment choices, tactical. Session-level choices, strategic, like what mission to tackle next. And campaign-level choices, like alliances and long-term goals. For example, Traveler, a sci-fi RPG, built in a famous decision point in character creation. You can keep rolling to age your character and gain more skills, but risk death in character generation. That's an extreme example, but it shows how that even before play, meaningful decisions can engage players. Finally, playtest your design to see if players actually feel they have agency. If testers say, I felt like we had no choice but to do X, you may need to tweak things to open up more options. Designing for discovery. This often comes down to content design, the lore, the setting, the scenarios. A game system can facilitate discovery by providing tools for game masters to create interesting mysteries or environments. For instance, hex crawl systems in old school RPGs give procedures for exploring wilderness hexes, often with random tables for what you discover in each new area. Lost ruins, strange creatures, resource nodes, and on and on. A well-designed discovery mechanic might be something like artifact research. The game could have a system where players find unidentified magic items and must spend time to research or attune them to learn their properties. That process is a mini discovery game. Another design approach is progressive revelation. Structure your game's narrative or mechanics to reveal layers. Legacy board games like Gloomhaven or Pandemic Legacy do this with sealed envelopes and packets that you open as you hit certain milestones, an idea that RPGs could use too. Imagine an RPG campaign set that comes with sealed lore dossiers to open up finding certain clues. In less physical terms, think of campaign arcs in a published adventure path. Design it such that each chapter unveils new facets of the story and world, maybe with twists that recontextualize what players thought they knew. To design for discovery, you must really know what's compelling about your world and let the players gradually experience it. It also means leaving some blanks, as Powered by the Apocalypse suggests, for players to fill in. They discover part of the world by creating it, which feels rewarding. If you're designing a game system rather than a single story, make sure the system supports game masters in creating rich settings. Provide lore generators, interesting NPCs with secrets, strange tables of phenomena. A game like Stars Without Number includes extensive tools for generating planets, alien ruins, and factions, effectively baking discovery potential into the system. As a tip, mysteries and secrets are your friends. Design scenarios where not everything is obvious up front. Just ensure that your game also provides the means for players to eventually get the clues they need. Players should feel challenged to find things out, but not hopeless. Designing for expression. This is about giving players the freedom and tools to be creative. At the system level, that means character creation should be diverse and flexible enough to allow a wide range of concepts. If every character ends up feeling the same, that's a failure of expression. Many games achieve this by having broad lists of traits or even free-form traits. For example, GURPS is famously crunchy, but one of its strengths is you can build virtually any character concept by picking from hundreds of skills and advantages. It's a buffet of expression, though the complexity can be high. Rules-light games achieve expression by not over-defining things. Resus, a very light RPG, lets you describe your character in cliches like veteran space cowboy as a trait. That's extremely flexible and expressive, limited only by your description. As a designer, consider, does your character creation have room for players to input their own ideas? If you have a list of preset options, is it extensive enough or modular enough to cover interesting combinations? Many modern games include a generic write-your-own-trait option to ensure expression. Fate's Aspects, as mentioned, or games that let you write a freeform skill. Additionally, design mechanics that encourage personalization. If your game has a magic system, perhaps allow players to describe the appearance of their spells, or invent spells within guidelines. If it has a social mechanic, maybe include an element like beliefs, goals, or relationships that players define with their characters, like Burning Wheel does with beliefs and instincts. Those are pure expression, and they also drive gameplay by providing role-play hooks. Another angle is giving players narrative control in small ways. Some games let players spend a resource to introduce a story detail, similar to Fate's idea or the GM intrusion in Numeria, where players can propose a beneficial detail by spending XP. By formally allowing that, you make player expression a mechanic, not just a courtesy from a polite game master. However, know your target audience. Some players love heavy structure, which can limit expression. Others love freeform. As a designer, you might choose to prioritize expression if you want to cater to role players and storytellers. If you do, make sure your rules inspire creativity. Flavor text, evocative artwork, and examples can help fire the imagination. For instance, Mage the Ascension gave a highly flexible magic system. You can attempt nearly anything within your sphere of magic. To keep it from being overwhelming, it provided tons of examples and cool descriptions, basically nudging players with ideas. That's a way to foster expression without leaving players totally lost on how to contribute creatively. In short, designing with DDE in mind means balancing these four elements to suit the experience you want to create. Not every game needs to max out all four. You might intentionally make a simpler game that doesn't emphasize discovery. Maybe it's a one-shot party game that's all about funny roleplay expression and quick decisions. But being aware of DDE ensures you don't accidentally neglect something players value. For example, if you create a complex strategic role-playing game with loads of decisions and some dynamism, but you disallow players from narratively customizing their characters, low expression, and there's nothing much to explore, no discovery, because every game is an arena battle, you might end up with a very gamey experience that could feel shallow or only appeal to a small subset. Unless that's your goal, you likely want at least a bit of all four. Think of DDE as four pillars supporting the fun of the game. If one is completely missing, the structure might wobble for certain players. As you iterate on your design, you can use DDE to identify weaknesses. Is playtesting feedback showing players feeling bored? Maybe the game lacks dynamism. Try adding more unexpected events. Are they confused about what to do next? Maybe not enough discovery cues. Give clear hooks or curiosity-driven goals. Are they disengaged from their characters? Perhaps the game's constraints are too tight, stifling expression. Loosen up character options or narrative control a bit. Are they feeling like their choices don't matter? Then clearly address the decisions. Ensure choices lead to divergent outcomes or strategies. By deliberately crafting your game with dynamism, decisions, discovery, and expression in mind, you set the stage for a well-rounded and satisfying experience. But game design is only half the story. What about running a game or playing it and improving the experience? That's where the DDE model is equally useful for an analytical tool for game masters and players, which we'll explore next. Whether you're a game master trying to fine-tune your ongoing campaign or a player reflecting on what you enjoy in games, the DDE framework can shine a light on where things are working well and where they could improve. Here's how each element of DDE can be applied to analyzing and enhancing the RPG experience at the table. Dynamism in practice. As a game master, ask yourself, is my game dynamic enough right now? If you sense that sessions have become predictable or formulaic, you might inject more dynamism. This could be as simple as introducing a plot twist. The ally who hired you was the villain all along. Or adding a random event. Suddenly, a freak magical storm blows through town in the middle of their investigation. Use the tools at your disposal. Have NPCs take unexpected actions. Maybe the Thieves Guild launches an attack earlier than the players anticipated. Or leverage the game's mechanics for surprise. Don't fudge every dice roll. Let the unexpected ones stand, for better or worse. Keep an eye on player engagement. If players are leaning forward, excitedly reacting, oh wow, I didn't see that coming, then you might be hitting the dynamism mark. If they're yawning because they feel like they can predict the entire session's events from the start, you might need to shake things up. Also, be willing to play off your players' creativity. Often players will do something you didn't expect. Instead of steering them back to a planned route, roll with it and see where that leads. That improvisation maintains dynamism and has the bonus of validating their decisions. For players, if you crave more dynamism and your game master is a bit too by the book, you can attempt to spur it by taking bold, unexpected actions. Sometimes player proactivity introduces dynamism. Deciding, actually, I want to talk to the Dark Lord now, not at the end of the campaign. This will certainly create a dynamic shift. Of course, communication is key. You can also talk to your game master between sessions. Hey, I would love if things were a bit more unpredictable. Can we maybe have more twists or reactive NPCs? Good game masters will take that feedback and amp up the dynamism in a way that fits the story. Decisions and player agency. To enhance the decisions aspect, the game master should continuously offer meaningful choices. If you notice you've been railroading, maybe inadvertently, step back and intentionally plan for multiple possible player choices. For example, instead of assuming the group will fight the ogre guarding the bridge, also prepare for what happens if they try to negotiate or find a way around. During play, when a player asks, can I do something that I don't have abilities for? Try to default to yes and or yes but rather than no, you can't do that. Keeping an open mind as game masters preserves player agency. Also, explicitly present dilemmas now and then. Moral choices, resource choices. There's only time to save one of the two villages under attack. Strategic choices. Multiple leads to follow. Which one first? Then respect those choices by changing the world state accordingly. If the players abandon village A to save village B, maybe village A is indeed razed to the ground. That consequence makes their decision weighty. From the player side, to improve your experience of agency, engage with the choices proactively. If the game master is too railroady, sometimes you can gently push for agency by asserting a plan. We know the game master wants us to go to the castle, but what if we investigate the forest instead? Let's do it. A good game master will take the hint and adapt. If not, it might be a session 0 or post-game conversation topic about playstyle. Also, players can create decision points by setting personal goals. For instance, decide, my character really wants to find her lost brother. Tell the game master that. A responsive game master will then incorporate that, giving you personal decision points like, do you chase the campaign villain or divert to follow a rumor about your brother's whereabouts? Now you've created a meaningful decision in the narrative for yourself. Keeping the game rich in decisions is a collaborative effort. The game master provides opportunities and the player sees them. The result is a game where everyone feels their choices make a difference, leading to greater investment and satisfaction. Discovery and engagement. To bolster discovery in an ongoing game, a game master can add layers of mystery or exploration to just about any scenario. If you're running a straightforward adventure and it feels too linear, consider adding a hidden lore element. Perhaps the dungeon the players are exploring has inscriptions that hint at a larger story, or one of the items they find has a mysterious origin they can research later. You can also engage players' curiosity by asking questions. This room has a large mural of a battle. What do you do? Implied is that if they investigate, they might learn something. Maybe the mural depicts an ancient hero related to their quest. If the players seem uninterested, that might signal they're craving a different kind of discovery. Not every group loves deep lore. Some might be more into discovering mechanical rewards, like new powers or equipment. In that case, make sure you're giving out those tangible discoveries too, a new spell scroll, a schematic for a gadget. If a group enjoys world exploration, consider varying the environments frequently. New scenery itself is a form of discovery. After several sessions in the city, it's refreshing to travel to the icy mountains and see what's there. For players, if you want more discovery, the key is to pursue things in-game. Be the character who says, I checked the books in the library for any mention of the symbol we found. Show the game master that you're interested in the world's details. Often, game masters have a lot prepared or can come up with something, but they need to know the players care to actually bring it up, or that they are actually interested in playing through it. Also, share what kind of discovery excites you. If you love puzzles, tell your game master you enjoy solving riddles. If you love exploring maps, perhaps the game master can incorporate a treasure map that you have to follow, literally uncovering the world piece by piece. Game masters generally delight in players taking an interest in the world. It means their creation is being appreciated. So a little encouragement in that direction can open the floodgates of lore and secrets. One more tip for game masters: consider the pacing of discovery. If players seem a bit lost or bored, it might be because they haven't had a satisfying reveal in a while. Try to include a small revelation each session, even if it's just, you learn the butcher is actually an informant for the Thieves Guild. These breadcrumbs keep the curiosity alive. And when a big reveal happens, the campaign's major plot twist, really let it land. Those moments can be highlights of the entire campaign if earned through gradual discovery. They give players that retrospective thrill of piecing it all together. Oh, that's why those earlier clues made no sense until now. Expression and player creativity. Fostering expression at the table is mostly about creating a safe and inviting space for roleplay and creativity. As a game master, celebrate when players add their own flair. If a player describes an action colorfully or steps into character for a heartfelt speech, respond in kind within the fiction, and perhaps even reward it. Many games have inspiration or similar mechanics. D&D 5e literally has inspiration, which a game master can award for good roleplay, giving that player an extra boost. Make sure your game isn't so rigid that it stifles these moments. For example, don't interrupt a fun in-character conversation just because the plot must move on. Those conversations are the game too. If players aren't expressing much, you can prompt them with questions about their character's feelings or backstory. How does Althea react seeing her childhood home after all these years? This invites the player to share a bit of their character's inner life, giving them a chance to express themselves. Also, incorporate player-created elements. If a player invented an old war buddy in their backstory, bring that NPC into the story arc. It shows that the player's creative contributions matter. The more the campaign reflects the character's choices and backgrounds, the more it becomes a unique story about those characters, not a generic module that could be about anyone. For players, expressing your character might mean taking little risks, like speaking in an accent or narrating your action with a bit more drama than you usually do. It can feel silly at first, but if everyone's supportive, it quickly becomes extremely rewarding. Remember, expression isn't a competition. It's about having fun with your persona. Some players write elaborate backstories or even in-character journals between sessions. If that's your jam, go for it. And GMs, if your player does this, read it and comment on it. That positive feedback encourages more creative immersion. On the other hand, if you feel your character is a bit bland, look for moments to make them your own. Maybe develop a signature phrase or a habit, like always polishing your sword after a battle while humming your clan's anthem. These little touches make the character feel alive, and if you as a player feel the system is limiting your expression, I don't really get to do what I imagine my character doing because the rules won't let me, then talk to your game master. Many game masters will allow some bending of rules for cool ideas or house rule a solution. For instance, if you want your fighter to swing from the chandelier Errol Flynn style to kick an enemy, but the rules have no specific mechanic for that, a good GM will just improvise a ruling because it's an awesome moment of expression that shouldn't be shut down. In group terms, encouraging expression also means making sure everyone gets spotlight time. As a game master, be mindful if one or two players are doing most of the talking or cool moves. Gently bring others in. Ask the quieter player, what does your character think about this plan? Or create a scene specifically for them. While the rogue and the wizard are disarming the golems, how is your bard influencing the frightened villagers in the square? They look to you for courage. This gives each player a platform to express their character's heroism, cunning, compassion, or whatever traits they want to show off. As fellow players, be supportive. Listen when someone's role-playing a scene, react in character if appropriate, and avoid hogging the limelight. The game is collaborative, and the story is richer when it features all the characters' voices. In essence, using DDE to enhance play boils down to attention and balance. Pay attention to which element might be lacking and take steps to bring it into harmony with the others. A campaign firing on all 4 cylinders of DDE will typically feel more satisfying. Players will say things like, the game has been really exciting. Dynamism. I love that our choices matter. Decisions. The world story is so intriguing. Discovery. And I'm really into my character. Expression. If you get feedback along those lines, you know you're on the right track. If not, zero in on the element that's not getting love and address it. Finally, an important note. Every group is unique. Some groups might value one element over others. You might have a very storytelling focused troupe that cares most about expression and discovery and doesn't mind a relatively low complexity decisions or consistent tone, not too much dynamism. Another group may be tactical, wanting tough fights with big decisions and dynamic battlefields, caring less about deep discovery or emotional expression. That's fine. DDE isn't meant to say every game must have equal parts of all 4. Rather, it's a language for discussing what a game could offer. Game masters and designers can tune the dials to suit the intended experience. Use DDE to identify your group's preferences and adjust accordingly. If everyone's happy with the level of something, then you're good. If one player or the game master feels something is off, then DDE vocabulary can help articulate it. I wish this campaign had a bit more discovery, like some puzzles or mysteries, instead of just fight after fight after fight. The DDE model provides a framework to both understand and craft the rich experiences of tabletop role-playing games. Dynamism keeps the game world in motion with surprises and emergent turns of events. Decisions empower players to shape the narrative through meaningful choices. Discovery fuels the excitement of exploration and learning new things within the game world. And expression lets every player leave their personal imprint on the story through creative roleplay and character development. For game designers, DDE can serve as a guiding star, a reminder to include mechanisms for surprise, meaningful choice, exploration, and creativity in their systems. For game masters and players, DDE offers a lens to diagnose what a campaign might need more of, or why a session felt so satisfying, or perhaps fell flat. It's a holistic view that encompasses both the structural and emotional components of play. In practice, the real magic of role-playing games happens when these four elements work in concert. Think of an iconic moment from a campaign you loved. Chances are it involved all of them. A tense, unpredictable situation where you had to make a tough call, which led to a big reveal or outcome, and you'll never forget how you, as your character, acted in that moment. By striving to design and run games that enable more of those moments, we enrich the hobby for everyone involved. The DDE model gives us a simple but powerful lens for building and analyzing the experiences we love in tabletop games. It's not the only framework out there, but it highlights some of the most essential ingredients for crafting memorable adventures. I hope it gives you new tools and inspiration for your next campaign or design project. If you found this deep dive helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments section below. I love to hear from you. And as always, thanks for watching. See you next time.